Riveting radio. Fuck this dude.
Everybody, welcome to Downballot. We do the show live every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. right here at twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. I'm producer Dave. You can find me damn near anywhere.
And this is the Councilman. You can find me at THE_Councilman on the Twitter device. So please check that out and slip into my DMs. I don't bite. And welcome once again to our locals show this evening. This evening is a momentous occasion in the life of local love, producer Dave.
Oh yeah, we got episode 200 coming up. It's been took a lot longer for that to get to 200 than it did for the Plex, but you know, there's been some hiatuses, some weeks off, some shit shows that I didn't feel like releasing, all kind of problems, guests not showing up, me abandoning the project because no one's listening to it, all kind of problems with local love. But we're back, we're having fun now, and the people in the chat enjoy the show and they all like Chip, so it's all good in the hood. Looks like I'm gonna have Chip, the Media Wench, Juan Maserati, possibly Johnny Corn, all in the studio. Plus, we got an interview with Ashes Fallen for the first 40 to 45 minutes. Obviously remote because they're in Sacramento.
That's fabulous. That's a fantastic panel. Are they all going to fit in the studio?
No, and I'm actually going for creating a show, not having some kind of free for all. So no, they're not all going to be on the panel.
An organized show.
Well,
that will be interesting.
I would like it very much if episode 200 of Local Love was not significantly worse than episode 199 of Local Love.
Or episode 1 for that matter.
Right. Right.
Well, congratulations. Another fabulous occasion for the Echoplex Media Network. And as always, everyone, check us out on echoplexmedia.com. You can find out how to give us your show bucks to keep this fledgling internet radio project alive. Definitely keep watching us on Twitch. Drop us some subs, boost the stream, all those things, and definitely if you're a podcast listener, keep downloading Downballot and Local Love on your podcatcher of choice, and share it with your friends, especially Downballot. We're looking to build an audience of local, politically savvy folks who dig on some local derp and might want to contribute to our docket from time to time, or even come on the show. So if you're interested, get in touch with us and drop us some stories. Get up in the Discord and drop us stories there as well.
As Chip always says about Local Love, throw a curveball to people and text message a link to the podcast to your friends.
Oh, there you go. Texting. So 90s. All right. Well, shall we get into the docket?
Yeah. What do we got up first?
Well, recently they've been doing some renovation on the Henry J. Kaiser Auditorium up in Oakland. It's one of our venerable older venues here in the Bay Area, and some of the construction workers found some shit up in the drywall that made them stop constructing.
A mummified body has been found inside the old Kaiser Convention Center in Oakland. Construction crews working to revitalize that facility made the disturbing discovery. KTVU's Christina Rendon joins us now. She's in the newsroom with more on the investigation. Christina.
Well, Julie, we can tell you that police are still looking into this. They do know that the man was found behind a wall in a space 15 inches wide, and they think he was in the ceiling of that building and somehow fell into the cavity and died.
Construction crews working to restore the old Kaiser Convention Center in Oakland were back on the job Thursday, one day after discovering a decaying body behind a wall.
And they were taking down a wall, and he was discovered behind some drywall flashing within the wall. So it was doing a demo.
Oakland Police Lieutenant Frederick Chavies tells us this is being classified as an unexplained death. The body is believed to be a man who had been stuck there for 3 to 5 years based on decomposition. The body was found in a space only 15 inches wide and 12 feet deep. Police say their initial theory is that the man was in the ceiling of the auditorium, then fell into the narrow space and died. Based on scratch marks behind the drywall, they believe the body made its way down the 12-foot cavity over time.
It's possible that the person could suffer from positional asphyxiation. And also, because of the narrow confines, it will be very hard to self-rescue.
The Alameda County Sheriff's Office says the body appeared to be mummified. Lieutenant Ray Kelly says they're working to identify the victim.
We're hoping that we can maybe rehydrate some of the skin around the fingers and get some partial fingerprints, and then we can run those fingerprints against our database and possibly identify the person.
If that doesn't work, they'll turn to DNA and dental records. The hope is for a match on the missing persons database. That might give authorities a timeline of how this happened.
The only positive that will come out of this story is being able to identify this person and bring closure to a family that's probably wondering where this person has been for many years.
And even though a traditional autopsy will be performed, at this point it's likely going to take months before authorities have some answers. Anyone with information is asked to call Oakland Police. Christina Rendon, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
It's such a sad and strange story, and wondering if there was ever a missing persons report filed on that person. Christina, thank you.
Yikes.
You think? I would hope so.
I feel like this is like how a horror movie of some kind would start.
Yeah, that or like one of those TV cop dramas or crime dramas, right? And cue the fancy music. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. That's a good theory as anyone. I mean, I first heard this story and I'm thinking mob, right? Or there was some sort of gang shit where they killed someone and they stuffed his body in the wall, right, of a construction project. But maybe it's because I'm Italian and that's just where my mind goes. But anyway, be careful out there when you're doing some contract work. You might come across a mummy, and don't disturb the mummy.
I'm just thinking like, what a way to go. Like
to fall in a wall.
Well, it must have taken some time before that person expired. So
you would think, right? They asphyxiated, or oh God, that'd be awful. And then to talk about their body, like they said that as the body decomposed, it made its way down the wall, right? It was not found in the position it died in. Gross. So not a very dignified, nor fun, nor very painless way to die. That must have sucked ass.
Wait a minute. Okay, everybody, we're about to get into winners and losers where there are no winners, and if there is a winner, it's somebody you don't want to win. This is a pretty terrifying docket so far.
I aim to please. It is the Ides of March, so we should be wary of that. And yesterday was Pi Day. It just goes on and on. Anyway, but as you said, we are coming up to winners and losers, and it gets pretty dark pretty quick. I tried to lighten it up. Like the curve definitely goes up towards the end of the docket, but this one is probably this takes the cake for probably the shittiest story we've had on Downballot before. I'll just let it run.
South Bay cat owners say they're terrified. The person who tortured and killed their pets has been released 1 month early to a supervised program. ABC 7 News I-Team reporter Melanie Woodrow explains why.
I don't feel safe.
Miriam Martinez says she adored her beloved adopted cat, Thumper.
She was like the neighborhood cat.
Martinez was one of many families victimized around 2015 by Robert Farmer.
Our cats were brutally killed.
Prosecutors say evidence showed Farmer tortured and or killed at least 21 cats.
He was found in his car, and there was blood evidence contained in his car.
Farmer pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 16 years. 13 years in custody, followed by 3 years of mandatory supervision, according to the Santa Clara County Deputy District Attorney, who explains that in California for crimes such as these, a person only serves half of their time in custody. Farmer was supposed to be released on April 10th, but was released a little more than 1 month early on March 1st to enter a non-custodial program where he's being supervised by the sheriff's office with an ankle monitor. The Deputy District Attorney says he'll transition to the probation department supervision on April 10th.
I'm hoping that the monitoring will be sufficient to protect the community and to ensure that nothing like this happens again.
Leonore Delgado and Carol Hyde are with the Palo Alto Humane Society.
We're very concerned.
They say it's hard to know whether Farmer has been rehabilitated.
We don't know.
The Deputy District Attorney says the conditions of his release include counseling, substance abuse treatment, a stay-away order of 100 yards from the Cambrian Park 95124 neighborhood, and Farmer can't have or live with any animals for 10 years.
This is one of the more horrific and disturbing cases I've ever worked on.
Animal lovers have this warning for the community.
Please keep an eye out for him.
Please keep your pets inside, not only because of people like Farmer who could be out there, but also because of other dangers.
ABC 7 News reached out to Farmer's attorney. We have not yet heard back. For the I-Team, Melanie Woodrow, ABC 7 News.
This is like, this guy's, they're just letting him out a month early and with an ankle monitor. This story seemed like this is a non-story. But they asked, has he been rehabilitated in prison? The answer is no.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't see how you're going to kill and torture, torture and kill at least they said 21 cats that they know of, right? That doesn't necessarily strike me as one of those passing fads or something you do as a casual, hobby. That's an obsession, and that's a problem. So I doubt that, no matter how much time they spent in the Hoosgow, I'm guessing it was not enough to expunge that desire. So there better be some serious therapy involved. There better be an ankle bracelet. There better be like definitely the restraining order and the distance from all animals whatsoever. But you never know. Like, just make sure if you're living in the neighborhood that you're not letting your cat wander off right into other people's yards.
My take is like very much different. I just think that almost nobody gets any sort of rehabilitative services whatsoever while they're in prison.
I mean, I don't think anything that we would consider like truly rehabilitative, right? Or all that good for them, right? Ostensibly they get something. I'm sure some people get something out of going to prison, right? But it may be something that they themselves, come to, right? A realization or a new approach to life or whatever it is, new philosophy, new religion. Generally, I think it's the inmate themselves or the prisoner themselves that comes to that space, and not the system that brings them there. I think you're right.
Yeah, and I just think that there's just the services just aren't fucking there.
No, and they're not. And then we don't pay for them. We pay a ton to incarcerate all of these individuals. We don't spend very much money at all on services for them, mental health services, post-carceral services, right? What do we do when they get out? Job training, job retraining, if they've been in for so long that they can't, acclimate to the new economy, things like that. There's none of that. I mean, there is, but it's just not. There's nowhere near enough funding for it that it can help. So.
Yeah, it doesn't like matter what someone's crime is. I'm just like, there are just not. I just don't hear a lot of stories about people getting, any kind of like rehabilitative services in prison. I just don't hear about it. So
yeah, and unfortunately, this does lead to certainly not the only cause, nor even the primary cause of homelessness, but it definitely leads to homelessness. It leads to people living outdoors, leads to people with PTSD and with drug addiction problems because they're living outdoors, right? And they're unsheltered and they don't have any support system around them. So yeah, I worry like hell about, forget a person who has a family when they get out, right? Like they have parents who are still alive, or, friends or brothers and sisters, right? Uncles, aunts, someone who can give them a job, give them a leg up, right? But most folks coming out of prison don't have that at all, right? And if anything, if they had it, it went away when they went to prison. Yeah, it's a travesty right now. So if anything, we need to elect better people to go to Sacramento and try to fix that. But I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, but I like I said, this is just 1 month early. I just don't think that a month is going to make a difference, even if there were services.
No, probably not. And who's to say he doesn't deserve it? If he's gone through all the programs we've asked him to. Yeah, no, it's a nothing story. It's more just to be able to rehash that this guy's a rat bastard for killing all those cats.
If it bleeds, it leads, even if it's a cat.
Anyway, moving along to human problems. So we've got some teachers up in San Francisco who apparently have not been paid since January. I don't know any teacher that would put up with not being paid for like 2 weeks, let alone 2 months. So let's see what's going on here, because obviously the school board's not really watching the game because they're all recalled.
Well, happening today, hundreds of teachers in 2 Bay Area school districts may receive pink slips. Today is the state deadline to issue the layoff notices, and it comes as San Francisco teachers stage an unusual protest and dispute over back pay. Today at the Bay, Sierra Johnson following those developments for us this morning. She's live in San Francisco. So, Sierra, talk to us about what's on the line here.
Good morning, Marcus. Yeah, it's a story we've been following for months now. Today is officially that deadline from the state that those notices are going out and have to be received by those individuals. 300 positions on the line at this time. If you take a look at your screen, we have a breakdown of what exactly those positions are. So according to the district, the cuts include 151 teacher, counselor, and social work positions, 51 top-level managers, and 62 additional staff members. Now, the district says not every employee who receives a notice will be laid off. Early retirement and resignation incentives are being offered, that with the hopes of filling vacancies with existing staff. And as one district works to deliver those layoff notices, another, also dealing with the budget shortfall, is also preparing teacher layoffs. Now, the school board for the Sausalito Marin City School District just approved potential layoffs for 5 classroom teachers, as well as reduced hours for an additional 3 staff members. Now, these cuts would go into effect next school year, and they're working to balance a $1.6 million deficit. Meanwhile, the issues with the San Francisco Unified School District, they don't end with those potential layoffs. Just last night, frustrated teachers and staff members camped out at district headquarters. They're demanding administrators fix payroll system glitches that have delayed or even shortchanged hundreds of educators over the past 2 months. District leaders say the problem stems from the district switching over to a new accounting system. The superintendent has released a statement saying, in part, quote, "We deeply apologize to every employee who has experienced a delay in pay. We are committed to resolving this emergency as quickly as possible." Continues by saying every staff member will be paid the money they are owed. So we will, of course, continue to follow the payroll situation as well as those layoff notices. Again, today is the deadline for San Francisco Unified School District, as well as the potential layoff for a handful of teachers there in the Sausalito Marin School District right over the bridge. We're live in San Francisco. Sierra Johnson for Today in the Bay.
Well, the hits just keep coming for fucking San Francisco teachers, right?
Teachers in general, right? My God. I mean, they complain a lot. There's definitely a shortage of teachers right now, especially in high need areas, special education, mathematics, sciences. But why and you'd have to be crazy to go into the teaching profession this day and age. You have to really love it, right? You have to imagine that the folks that do this job really fucking love it, because they're not getting paid anywhere near enough. They're not respected enough. They get dumped on every chance, someone gets, and they've been out there on the front lines basically of COVID all this time. Right. And parents are cheering that, we can go maskless, and they're screaming that, the teachers need to sack up. Right. And they just keep getting dumped on. So it's no wonder that they get together in unions to organize and to fight for their rights. I think maybe if more people in the private sector did, they wouldn't be such automatons either. And we can push back on the corporate landowners and corporate, behemoths. But that's another story entirely. Teachers just keep getting fucked. And now, of course, there's less and less board members around to look out for them. And 3 of them are already checked out. So this is what you get. This is governance. This is what the folks that proposed the recall, now they have to run to be appointed for these seats, right? Theoretically, they're going to go for these seats. Now you get to govern. You get to deal with the teachers union. You get to deal with the classified employees union. You get to deal with the trades unions and all of the other ins and outs of running a school district, right? The power bill, the food bill, the water bill. Good luck. Have fun. Oh, yeah. And you have to bring equity and make sure that all your kids is learning.
Well, I don't know. Like, the people who did the recall, they probably think that this is like an advantageous turn of events for them now, too. Because now when they go to, like, I don't know, if they go to recall the rest of the board or whatever, they couldn't even get the payroll out. And so they can recall the rest of the fucking board after this recall election,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's fucked up, but like, if they're just playing politics here, either make a name for themselves as individuals, or maybe they're part of a, what seems to be a broader movement across the country to tear down public education as an institution, be it through, complaining about masks, to fucking complaining about, esoteric theories of law, to, getting mad about a Black Lives Matter poster at a school, to all these different things that just seem like, if it's not a coordinated effort, I mean, it whatever, it's like a stochastic effort then, where it's, where it would appear to be coordinated, and it's having the result that it's, that it generally, that it was intended to have. I just don't see like what's like the end game. Like what good is any of this doing? Like, okay, the recall happened. Great. You got rid of some of the soups. Now, like, some of the teachers aren't getting paid. I know that it's not a direct result, but you're right. Now the administration for the schools, they're missing a couple people, or, I don't know if London Breed has put in temporary replacements, but those people don't know what the fuck they're doing, because they just got there. And so, like, solving a problem like this, boy, would have been nice to have the whole school board there.
Right. Absolutely. And have more voices in the room, and, but I don't think it's coordinated in as much as different groups are leveraging each other, right? You've got this broader, just upset base, right, of folks, the anti-vaxxers, the anti-everything folks, the NIMBYs, they're just the anti-government folks are just all, organized around government sucks and COVID lockdowns are bullshit. You've got parents who are always a very volatile force out there, aggravated by the pandemic, and then given an opportunity to inject their vitriol into the conversation. And then you've got the greater, like you mentioned, the broader education reform movement, right? Which is very moneyed. The Walmarts of the world, the Netflix, the Reed Hastings of the world are the ones backing these folks up, right? They fund their own charter schools, and they fund movements like, Parents for Great Schools, right? Organizations with very good sounding and very, very, very tame sounding names, trying to do good by our children, but really are there because a few white people think that they know best about how to reform and transform education in this country, and they have a lot of money and the ability to promote that and propagate that, yes, across blogs and websites and news outlets, and media hits, to the point that they've built a huge movement that is now leveraging all those pissed off parents and all those pissed off people who are just recall everyone, right? So it's this great confluence, this great perfect storm, but I don't know that it's going to be a storm that is abated anytime soon. I don't know if it's going away, and it might. We'll see. We'll see, because once this very vocal and very adamant, very well funded and well heeled group comes into power, you have to govern. You have to do something, or you're going to be the next one recalled, right? You have to change things. You have to make things better, or you'll be next on the chopping block. So we'll see.
Well, this is just all part of what we've been sort of referring to as the grand unified theory of the gigantic potato. And it's like, this isn't all QAnon shit, but that fucking, those sort of like ideas, those, the people who are in charge are the elites and they're out to get you and whatever, that permeates all of this. And it's not surprising that in the wake of the QAnon phenomena, as it doesn't fizzle out necessarily, but kind of broadens in its scope, and it's in some ways sort of loses intensity on each specific issue. The idea that the battleground is still going to be our children or whatever is not surprising. And this is unsettling. I was hoping that when Gavin Newsom was not recalled in dramatic fashion, let's say, I was hoping it would kind of put the brakes on all of this and kind of, well, not really put the brakes on all of it, but like shift the momentum the other way. And it just really didn't do that.
No, and I don't know how I can speak to that other than they spent a lot of money pushing back on that, and made damn sure that it didn't, that he stayed in office. But it's also just easier to do at these local levels, right? You only need a few thousand signatures to get something like this on the ballot in a local school district, right? To get a recall or anything on the ballot, really. So it's not that hard to execute in these smaller ways, right? I don't think you'll see it in major ways, right? You're not going to see senators or governors or, that kind of level, or even congressional office, members of Congress recalled. But I think, or even state officials, but I think you see a lot more at the school board level, and this maybe even the small city council level, because the broader the base, the larger the district, it just gets harder to garner enough support. But with a small frothy base in a small frothy district, right? You can do things like this. And you're right, it comes in the back of our children, it comes in the backs of the future, right? And unfortunately, the people that we elect to govern our schools are generally the least experienced, the most green when it comes to governing, and they're also the most manipulable and the easiest to recall and to influence. So it's again another perfect storm that leads to the detriment of our children.
And apparently the most fun to scream at a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And they fear it too. The districts they do everything they can. School districts do everything they can to avoid confrontation and to avoid the transparency and the accountability, because they just don't want to deal with it. And it is kind of a headache, frankly, having been on both sides. It can be paralyzing to getting anything done. Once parents and a huge contingent of employees and parents, or both, or the other, or community members, when they chomp down on a certain subject, it can be paralyzing responding to it. And then you're left with not many resources to actually do the work of educating our kids. So it's tough, but we move on. Hopefully one day teachers will be respected like doctors and lawyers and get the same kind of pay and benefits and revere. Just not today.
So we're going to move from the public schools to another public school, but it's a public university. Before we get to this, what is CEQA?
Oh, good. Thank you. Very good question. CEQA stands for the California Environmental Quality Act, and it is a document that governs in California when new development happens. Even if if you happen to be rebuilding your house and you happen to live next to a riparian corridor or a river, right? In normal speak, river. Yeah, you have to go. Your project has to go through a certain review in terms of its environmental impacts. Generally speaking, you'll get away if your project is small enough. If it's your house, you have an exemption, so they'll just say there's no need to do the report, right? But the bigger a project gets, it has to complete a report has to be completed about the impacts that the project would have on, not just the natural and lived environment, but also historical. Potential artifacts or locations or structures that have to be demolished, or trees that have to be torn down, or gas emissions, energy emissions, things of that nature. So it's an act that governs all of this, and it sounds like a good thing, and it is a good thing to have that kind of review on any big project. The problem has been that moneyed interests and lawyered interests have been able to manipulate the development process and stall projects. For example, say a labor union has a beef with a certain contractor or a certain developer, and they don't want one of their projects to go forward without a labor agreement with them. They can use, or they have used, CEQA and threatened to sue on the environmental grounds of a project, using broad loopholes and broad definitions of what they can sue on in order to extract that out of the developer, right? So this story is an example of how CEQA has been misused in terms of UC Berkeley avoiding, building more housing for their students. However, generally speaking, it's been abused, and not just by, I don't want to just single out labor unions. Corporate interests and other interests do this, in realtors pull the same crap with CEQA all the time. It's manipulated, it's overused. So there are reforms underway to rein it in a bit. But it's still a very vital piece of the development process, because you don't want to just let anyone developer do willy-nilly build a huge building in the middle of your town without considering what the impacts are to the population of your town, and not just the human population as well. So anyway, this is a story about that.
Just to have more of an opportunity to be able to go to college, it really made me happy.
There's a big smile on Trinity Lee's face tonight because Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law SB 118. That's legislation that will stop Cal from having to turn away thousands of students from its incoming freshman class.
I've just heard about Berkeley ever since I was in middle school. So just for me, it was just so exciting just to know that I have the option to go there, and now I know I don't have to be counted out anymore.
Before today, Lee was in that group of some 5,000 students who could have gotten a rejection letter from Cal when the state Supreme Court ordered the university to reduce its in-person enrollment by 2,600 students. That was a possibility because just recently, the court sided with a neighborhood group that sued the school for violating environmental laws by adding too many students without providing housing. That prompted two lawmakers to draft the bill. It passed very quickly and unanimously in the Assembly and Senate. And it was signed quickly by the governor.
I think it's unfortunate that they didn't pay attention to the fact that more than 10% of students at Berkeley are homeless while they're in school here. And they got no legally binding commitment in the legislation for the university to increase housing.
Assembly member Phil Ting and State Senator Nancy Skinner are the authors of the bill.
We need to build more housing. That's why we put $2 billion to support housing at our colleges and universities.
The city of Berkeley, the voters passed an initiative back in the 70s that basically prevented multifamily housing from being built. So we have to look also at ourselves and not just campuses for our responsibility for not building enough housing.
UC Chancellor Carol Price put out a statement saying that the university is working on fixing its housing crisis. She also says that the school is working on being more transparent. In Berkeley, Cheryl Hurd, NBC Bay Area News.
Seems like they could have gotten that transparency thing done back in the 60s, but I don't know. So yeah, this is an example of a community group suing using CEQA, and the university basically backing down, and also a local court saying that they didn't have to. They can't accept more students because it would mean building more housing, and they just didn't want the additional housing. Basically, they just don't want more people around. They don't want their parking spaces taken up. They don't want taller buildings next door to their houses. It's just another example of NIMBYs trying to block development. So the state stepped in, and the state legislature stepped in and created a law that basically is about this one specific thing, this one specific incident, but could apply to other incidences.
So I only see this as like a partial victory, because if the school is going to admit all those students, but there's nowhere for the fucking students to live, it seems like a problem. It seems like a kicking the can down the road sort of problem.
Yeah, the second part of it is mandating that the school, live up to it, because they do have an obligation. Actually, it's really the school is almost obligated. If they accept a certain number of students, they have a mandatory obligation for the housing they need to provide, right? So it's like a chicken and the egg thing. They don't have to admit those students if they don't want to. I don't know that the UC is the problem here so much as the NIMBYs, and then the UC not wanting to upset the NIMBYs, right, or the natives. But yeah, there is a mandate for it, and as Assemblymember Ting said, there is funding for that housing as well too. So it's not like they can't do it. It's just that the neighbors don't want it, and the school wasn't willing to go to the mattresses to defend their right to do it. They were just willing to step back and say, we're not going to admit as many students. Easy way out, right? Except for the students, of course.
Right. Yeah, it's the guy that said 10% of the students are homeless. It almost felt like that guy was using the plight of the homeless students as a prop in his crusade more than anything else.
Right. He's basically saying that if you add more students, that'll just be more homeless students. Was what he was implying.
Heavily implying.
And that would not be good for him or his property values, apparently.
Right. And at the beginning you had mentioned like realtors and unions and stuff, and I was surprised you didn't mention like NIMBY community groups being one of the main types of, maybe even like sort of ad hoc organizations that will use that law to try to prevent, I don't know, apartments, fucking even a park they don't want somewhere because they think it'll be a bad park, or just any kind of anything, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, citizens aligned against virtually everything. Cave people, right? Yeah, no, absolutely. I saved it for the story because I knew that was what the specific group was in that story. But absolutely, and don't put it past like the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society. Ostensibly good organizations fighting for the environment to be using this in a vindictive way too, not just to save the birds. It does happen, and for personal reasons. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the environment groups may be the ones that are more likely using the law sort of within the spirit of the law to be like, hey, you can do your housing development, but don't fuck up this habitat here or whatever,
Right. So stay tuned for more in the great CEQA battle. And thank you, Producer Dave, for the opportunity to explain a really obtuse and moribund piece of policy to everyone. Wait, not moribund, that's not the right word, but obtuse piece of policy to everyone out there.
Cool. Well, we're going to move on to our last story in Winners and Losers. We got some schools are going maskless, and parents are rejoicing, but apparently the teachers not so pleased with it.
Nah. We'll see who wins.
Wearing a mask has become part of students' everyday routine. So even with San Jose Unified saying masks are optional, most students still masked up today. Across San Jose Unified's 41 schools, school officials and teachers say masks may now be optional, but they're still as common as backpacks.
Students are between 85 and 90% are wearing masks, and the majority of teachers are also choosing to continue wearing masks.
And they don't expect things to change much, at least not too soon.
It's not a transition. I think that's going to happen in, overnight. I've had a couple elementary schools that have said, there were a couple kids that came without a mask, and then they saw that most everyone else was wearing one, and then they put one on.
But just next door, in 19 elementary schools and 7 middle schools in Alum Rock School District, masks are still a rule, not an option. They have decided to keep the mask mandate till the end of the school year. Parents and kids we spoke to today don't seem to mind.
I feel like it's going to keep us a little bit more safer. I'm actually really glad that the Alum Rock School District is keeping the mask mandate for our kids. I think that my own son is still very nervous about COVID.
Alum Rock was particularly hard hit by the pandemic, and many say they'd rather not risk another wave.
So I think here we understand the implications, and we just want to make sure that everyone's safe.
Alum Rock isn't alone. Franklin McKinley and Oakland Unified have also said they'll wait at least a few more weeks before lifting their mask mandates. In San Jose, Ginger Conejero-Saab, NBC Bay Area News.
That was interesting. Instead of showing the teachers who were upset about masks or whatever, they showed, parents who were upset about masks, they showed parents who were fine with it.
Oh, yeah, a nice little reversal. So maybe not so much winners and losers after all. Maybe there are some winners.
It's just who they chose to show, I think,
Yeah, editing is an amazing thing, right? And it's all in who you talk to. And a lot of times with local news, it's really whoever the first person they talk to kind of tends to dominate the story. So, but yeah, good on certain parents for being remaining cautious, and good on the kids for being cautious. Props to them. Listen to the children. That's what I always say. They will tell you what's best for themselves and for you, probably too. Anyway, moving right along to our favorite segment of the show, getting your shit together. As we've been following, NBC Bay Area is doing another one of their fantastic investigative reports. This one is on San Francisco, and apparently it needs saving. So we watched episode 1, I think you might have watched episode 1 a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So this is episode 2, and it's a very interesting report so far. It's kind of focusing not so much on like the macro, but the micro, and taking like one person as an example of the entire system, which I don't know, is a little problematic to me. But why don't we go ahead and see what this next episode is about? It's a little long, so we don't have to get too deep into it, but maybe it's the intro, and then see where we go from there.
It'll give me a chance to go grab a caffeinated beverage.
All right, there you go. Let it roll.
Have you ever been in love? Like that really crazy, heart-pounding kind of love? Well, our bodies produce different types of hormones, essentially chemicals, that kind of act like drugs, giving us a massive rush that can make us do some pretty wild stuff. Forgive things we otherwise wouldn't, do things we never thought we would, and even put ourselves in danger, all for that special someone. Living in San Francisco today is kind of like being caught in a bizarre love story. There are moments you fall head over heels and don't think it can get any better. And then other times, you're just heartbroken. Your stomach is in knots, you can't think, and all you feel is pain. But you're still in love with the streetcars and sunsets, the ups, the downs, the parks, people, and their pride. There's grit and glam and gluten-free everything. And yeah, no relationship is perfect. This one certainly isn't. But no matter how bleak or dirty or expensive or even dangerous it may get, we want to make it right. That's what you do in a relationship. The good ones are worth
I'm going to throw up.
And this is a good one.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful, broken place.
Well, so, this is getting deep.
We're allowed to not like parts of this city, but that doesn't mean we stop loving it. Because
I love that sweater.
We're committed to San Francisco. In sickness and in health.
Oh dear.
this guy again.
James Durgan and his years in and out of jail and rehab, it's clear the system that's been in place for decades is failing. Driving through parts of San Francisco, drugs, mental illness, and homelessness all collide into one big, overwhelming mess that seems almost impossible to clean up. So what exactly is the solution? How do you get people help, especially those who feel like they don't even need it?
Durgan doesn't want help.
That's Anne Ray. She filed a restraining order against James Durgan after he allegedly tried breaking into her home. But he's come back repeatedly over the years, even naked. She worries about what he'll do.
He has two sides to him. He has this very meek and articulate side of him that's almost submissive. But then there's angry James Durgan, which is actually what the Park Police call him. And that's when he's really high on meth. And that's when he is very violent.
About 75% of those locked up inside San Francisco County Jail suffer from mental illness, substance abuse, or both. And once the city's inmates are released, nearly half get arrested again within 3 years. James Durgan is the face of those statistics.
Countless times he's been offered help. I want help. My neighbors want help. We want to just live a peaceful life. And we don't want to be afraid.
But for as many times as Durgan has been arrested in San Francisco, including here in the Presidio, neighbors seem to be pretty split on how they feel about him. There's this woman who didn't want to be identified, who says Durgan tried breaking into her home and then left a message telling her about it.
Written in black Sharpie, the word almost on our door and an arrow pointing.
Just rehashing a lot of what they did in the first one.
I almost got in.
Yeah, it makes me sick. It makes me feel sick to my stomach.
A few blocks away, we met Garner Swan.
I am blessed. Not just
like they just ran the same footage in the first one.
He says James has repeatedly stolen stuff from his front lawn. Packages, his kids' toys, but he doesn't hold it against him.
He's not the problem. He is a symptom of it.
He says whenever James is around, he enjoys talking with him.
He was really fascinated with just knowing who I was. And especially when I told him I had kids, he wanted to know about my kids and
that's weird.
Meet my kids. He wasn't looking to get information from me so he could come and stalk my family. He was just excited.
He just wanted to know about my kids.
Neighbor, Chrissy Kenny, has been here 9 years.
James Durgan, our unhoused neighbor, he's definitely a polarizing figure. Most of the residents who have been here for as long as we have all had some kind of an encounter with him.
Have you ever been afraid of him?
I haven't. In a lot of ways, he has the mind of a child. He's sometimes very lucid and he's sometimes just not all there. It's really tragic.
Durgan did smash her car window once, but she says he shouldn't be punished any more than he already has.
If you just remove these people, that's not a solution. That's I don't want to see it, so make the problem go away.
We could probably put some tape on it as well.
Chrissy Kenny is a lighting designer.
Directly above you is really easy for me to change.
She says in high-priced San Francisco, times were already tough pre-COVID. But layoffs during the pandemic forced a lot of her coworkers to leave town. The number of people moving out of the city has spiked 34%.
It's wildly expensive here. Single bedroom units close to $5,000. It's tragic.
Chrissy says she sees many of her loved ones, even herself, in James Durgan.
He's a representation of a lot of people in this city. And it's just hard to see.
Jared Rudolph is the attorney defending James Durgan.
If you just look at what he's accused of, he's so much more than the accusation.
Jared is with the Public Defender's Office, which represents at least 70% of the accused here at San Francisco's Hall of Justice, since they can't afford an attorney of their own.
My job is to help people who are in a really, really difficult situation.
What's your reaction when you hear people describe Durgan as someone who makes them fear for their lives?
I understand why somebody would feel that way, and their fear is valid.
Jared has been trying to get James into a live-in drug treatment program, but space is hard to come by, especially during the pandemic. So you think there is a path where Durgan could be a productive member of society?
I would hope so, but maybe just a path where he is not bothering anyone, isn't personally suffering, and isn't sleeping on the street. Maybe that's all we really need. And a society that permits that and doesn't require somebody to produce is...
Oh, comrade public defender.
James has been to rehab facilities before, but
has you read Manifesto?
Only led to more charges and jail time.
So how did it get to this point? James the accused criminal, James the drug addict, James the homeless man who's had at least 16 restraining orders filed against him. Who was he before all that?
There's no one like him.
Next time on Saving San Francisco.
That was just episode 1 again.
Really understand how Durgan got to where he is today.
That wasn't episode 2, you liars.
About his past.
I feel like we're being jerked off here, producer Dave.
No.
No,
we were told that was going to happen, and then it didn't.
It's an American dream to grow up here.
There he is, James M. Durgan, class of '87.
He was the best friend I ever had. Somebody that just had a magnetism about him.
We are heading to the house of James Durgan's older brother.
I feel like the title of this entire
Durgan here
project is like just inaccurate.
Well,
Saving San Francisco, like I mean, it's a interesting exploration of this one person. It looks like, but maybe a little redundant. But I don't know about. I mean, I don't know how this necessarily. I mean, they're getting at the city a little bit, like they're getting at it, but it's not the heart of the story.
Like,
so I don't know.
They've mentioned a couple of structural problems like in the first 2 episodes, but I found that it seems as though the people they're interviewing about this guy are the ones bringing up San Francisco's structural problems, like unprompted almost.
Yeah, and what are we doing? And are we proposing anything, or is someone in this show going to propose? I'm guessing that it comes in a later episode proposing what are we going to do about these structural problems. But like Saving San Francisco implies that someone is actually coming in to save, and I haven't really seen any of that yet. I've just sort of seen that shit's fucked and they need to get their shit together. So when they finally come with the solutions, we'll take it out to get your shit together and we'll put it into Winners and Losers or Down Ballot Watch.
But I don't think shit's that fucked in San Francisco.
No more so than any other major city, right? Or any other city, period. It's just how it is, right? Any modern city, you're going to have issues like that. And especially during a pandemic and especially during an economic collapse, right? That happens. These things happen. San Jose's got to get used to it too, right? They're starting to get used to it, but still, number one issue is, housing. And it's not because a lot of people, so many people feel bad about people living unhoused. It's because there's a lot of people out there who feel bad about people living unhoused, and there's a lot of people out there who just don't like looking at the unhoused, right? But San Jose's going to have to deal with it too. So I agree with you. This is just, it's the cost of doing business in a city. Like, you got to deal with it.
I just feel like if you ask people who live in other cities in America, right? Like cities maybe where as dense as where we are and more dense, if they could live anywhere in the country, I bet San Francisco is number 1.
Right there, top of the pops, Bay Area for sure. Shit, if they knew about San Jose.
San Francisco specifically, I bet is number 1. Either that or like New York City.
Right.
And so, and I think what this thing is shining a light on. Sure, this guy seems like there's so many problems going on with this guy, right? But let's set this guy aside. The kind of gritty part of living in an American city is one of the things that draws people to cities, because there's stories in cities.
Yep.
That's why we're able to easily put together a news show that was supposed to run an hour, always runs a little over an hour, about the Bay Area. And if we just did San Francisco, we could still do just San Francisco. And the same would be true for Chicago, New York. But then as you get to like the smaller cities, you can't do that anymore. It's hard to do that. And so like, it's like cliche, but like you can walk down any block in any fucking like major city where the population is dense and find stories you wouldn't believe. stories worthy of being told, like by the news. And you're right, they're telling the story of this guy, but I don't know why they didn't just do a story on this guy, because it probably would have been a good series.
Right. I mean, it's got some interesting pieces. I just don't care for the journalism, and I think they're trying. It's false advertising to me.
It's like that Green Day song, "Welcome to Paradise." He's talking about Berkeley and talks about how he fucking loves everything about Berkeley.
Right.
And I think people that live in big cities, they feel that way. They, the mayor's like, oh, we got to worry about the crime in the Tenderloin. But you talk to any random person in San Francisco, they're like, what do you think of the Tenderloin? They're like, it's part of San Francisco. It's the TL. I tend to avoid it, but man, there's a good restaurant there that me and my friends like to hang out at. Or, there's something in all these fucking neighborhoods. They're like, oh, every once in a while, if I need a little cocaine, I guess you got to go where you got to go. And it's just this series is really dumb. And like, this guy won an award for another series, and I think it's very unlikely this guy's going to get any award for this series based on what I've seen so far. The first episode is the same as the second episode.
But it's so fancy and it's so well edited and shot. I mean, and he looks so good in his sweater. Watch, he will win an award for this. I'll bet you.
It's like trying so hard to be Vice.
It is. He's trying to move up the ladder too. Vicky Nguyen, went up to national NBC. She's on the Today Show now. She was on NBC Bay Area. So big guy's just trying to follow her footsteps. He'll be on CNN one day. Anyway, moving right along down ballot, we've got a few more stories before we turn it over to local love for the 200 Epi. So down ballot watch, we'd like to take a look at what's coming to the ballot in the near future. And this may not be coming to the ballot, but we'll see. Speaking of people who are upset and want to recall everything, with gas prices so high, people want to cancel the gas tax. So we'll see if we end up voting on that again in the future.
Soaring prices at the pump are already forcing some consumers to scale back their spending elsewhere.
On the weekends, I don't go out anymore, so that's been a bummer for my friends and I.
At the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, some commuters had voiced support for efforts by the U.S. and other countries to sanction Russian businesses and ban oil imports. But with prices continuing to rise almost daily, some now have questions about how long this will last.
I don't know what is the reason it's more expensive, because we need the 1% from Russian, and I don't know what is too expensive here.
With gas prices continuing to skyrocket, California Republican legislators say they'd like to try to do something now to provide some relief for drivers.
Gas prices in California are too damn high.
Speaking outside a gas station in Sacramento, several Republican lawmakers detailed legislation to try and suspend California's 50-cent per gallon gas tax. But they weren't very clear about whether they want to pause it or eliminate it.
We can do this. With the surplus that we have, we can backfill projects in transportation, which is why we have this additional tax for infrastructure.
During his State of the State last week, Governor Gavin Newsom said California will have a $75 billion budget surplus, though the state's chief legislative analyst has since said it's more likely about half of that. The governor says he wants to ease the pain of high gas prices by issuing rebate checks directly to California drivers. Meanwhile, economists who study the energy sector say cutting the gas tax may not provide any relief to consumers and could permanently cut infrastructure funding if it's suspended indefinitely.
Part of that gas tax reduction will be captured by the producers of gasoline. Maybe the gas stations, maybe the refineries.
In San Francisco, Sergio Quintana, NBC, Bay Area News.
Yep. If they reduce the gas taxes, it's going to maybe they'll split the difference, but I feel like somebody in that broader gasoline food chain is going to scoop up a bunch of that money.
Oh, money always finds a way to some place to go, right? So someone else is gonna recoup it. And I did love that image of the 5 Republican lawmakers. I'm pretty sure that's the only Republican legislators in Sacramento. All 5 of them. And then that truck coming in behind them, like, "Hey, honk, honk, guys, get out of the way! I need to gas up my truck." But yeah, that was pretty hilarious. So we'll see how far that gets. Not very far, seeing as how you do need, I think, 2/3 majority in the legislature to pass any sort of tax or tax revision. And last thing I checked, the Democrats have a super majority. So if this is a Republican thing, I don't think it's going anywhere. But we'll see. I love California sometimes.
I don't know if the gas tax is I don't even know what percentage of it is, but the first person they talked to had a good fucking point. He's like, hey, we only get 1% of our oil from Russia. So what the fuck's going on here?
Right. It's a very, very fine point. Very fine point. There were a lot of things at play here. Unfortunately,
I mean, I know like OPEC raised their prices once the conflict started because they could. Gas producers in the United States started raising their prices once the conflict started because they could. And people are just skimming money off the top because they can.
Yeah, we're all at the beck and call. As long as our society and our culture and our commerce are still built around gas and non-renewable resources, we're going to have to deal with whoever has their hands on those resources, right? And who refines them and who sells them. So all the more reason to go green, folks. Get on the fucking train.
Well, the problem is like electric cars, like people, sure, here we'd get a lot of it from renewables, but a lot of people, if they got like electric cars or whatever, they just get that fucking from oil, coal, and natural gas anyway. So natural gas being the cleaner of the three, but it would still come from kind of the same place.
Just hop into your Ford F-150 and drive it across town. There's probably cheaper gas over there.
So we got a couple campaign commercials. It looks like here. One's David Campos for state assembly, and you called this one Hope.
Yeah, well, that's what he calls it, actually. So these are just a couple ads. There's an election or a runoff election coming up April 19th in San Francisco for a state assembly seat that was vacated when David Hsu got appointed city attorney. So Matt Haney, who's a supervisor, and David Campos, who's the chair, I think, of the San Francisco Democratic Party, are both running for the seat. David Campos is a former supervisor. So we're just going to compare a couple ads from each of their campaigns. And this is David Campos.
I will fight to represent my constituents. I will fight to
represent
the city and county of San Francisco. I will fight to give those people who had once walked away hope so that those people will walk back in. Thank you very much.
There you go. So a classic example of an ad where the candidate themselves doesn't say a damn word, but you get the point, and you're left feeling with, if you like Harvey Milk or if you're down with pride and everything that Harvey stood for, you're left with this kind of warm feeling, right, about San Francisco, this warm fuzzy feeling. That's what they're trying to touch. So maybe if David Campos isn't your cup of tea, he's all about San Francisco and that what you were talking, what they're trying to talk about in Saving San Francisco, right? That love affair. So that's an example of an ad. More positive ad. Matt Haney, slightly different approach, but he has been getting hit quite a bit by David Campos in ads that aren't as friendly as that. So here's Matt's one of Matt's response ads.
Why is David Campos attacking Matt Haney with ads being called ugly and false? Don't fall for it. Matt is the only assembly candidate with a record of creating, not blocking housing. Matt has a plan to supercharge affordable housing in San Francisco, ending exclusionary zoning, building 100,000 new units, and getting the homeless off the streets into treatment and shelter. On April 19th, vote Matt Haney for Assembly. It's a vote for more housing now.
Just I think just on aesthetics, the second ad was better.
Yeah, it had a nice beat. You could bug out to it, and it also had a nice negative, even though it was sort of it was defending the candidate, but it was a negative hit on the other guy, right, for being negative in the first place, right? And then upbeat, positive, boom, tap. Matt looking good in the community, shaking hands with all the diverse people. I do think they're battling over who has the better hairstyle, but we'll see how that comes out.
I also think that the second ad just had substance. It, even though it didn't say exactly how he was going to do it, he's like, hey, we got to get like 100,000 new housing units in San Francisco, although he's running for state assembly. And I know that like there's a lot of crossover there, and there's things that the state deals with and things that the city and the county deal with. And I just saw more sort of like maybe not policy, but like appeals to policy in the second one. I don't know anything about either of these people. I presume they're both Democrats.
They are.
And I would presume that the second person might be more, even though the ad went one way, I would presume, just based on what I know about San Jose, is that the second person might be more in the Liccardo camp, sort of, and the first person might be more in the labor camp. I don't know how the camps shake out in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's pretty good read, actually. Although with the Liccardo camp in San Francisco, it tends to be a little more genuinely progressive, I'd say. Maybe not so folksy progressive.
Right.
But, I think that's a pretty good read, honestly. They profile that way. And David has labor support, institutional support. Neither one of them was able to get the Democratic Party's endorsement. So they're kind of fighting for that. And they're really just fighting to try and prove who's more progressive because it's San Francisco. Right?
Well, if your two runoff candidates are Democrats and the Democratic Party doesn't have beef or, really strong institutional ties with either of them, why not stay out of it and just let the people decide?
Oh, absolutely, but it's politics, and it's about money too. Having the endorsement means a lot of money, and also money that's not going to the other candidate, right? So, and the ability to say I am the one endorsed by the Democratic Party, right? Like he might be a Democrat, but I'm endorsed by the Democratic Party, right? And he's not. So therefore, he's not a good Democrat, is what you can imply, right? But generally speaking, those end up being popularity contests at the local level, the state level, anywhere you're talking about endorsements. When talking about people making endorsements of other people, it tends to be a popularity contest and not necessarily about who's the best candidate or the best Democrat or the best whatever. I've experienced this locally just now with local elections and endorsements that came out from the party in those elections. So there you have it.
After, I just think after what we've seen at the national level with the Democratic Party putting their thumb on the scale against, we've had different preferred candidates last time in the election, but the thumb got put on the scale against both of them, didn't it? And
correct.
And so maybe the Democratic Party in California is a little bit wise to people not liking that so much.
Maybe. Perhaps it comes down to local. The good news is it does come down to local delegates, right? The people in that assembly district were the ones that are able to vote on whether or not to endorse. It's not the entire party, unless it comes down to an appeal of some sort. But generally speaking, the locals get to vote on their own local endorsements. There's no, so theoretically, if you can organize well, in that select group, you're going to be okay, whatever you're trying to do.
Has our lovely mayor of San Francisco said anything about either any of this?
That's a good question. I do not know if she is endorsed in the race yet, but we can certainly look that up and get back to you. But we have until April 19th, but ballots are going out now. So have fun voting if you're in San Francisco.
I don't know. It seems like this might be a case too where maybe they're both just fine. They're both going to vote exactly the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither. It would be an absolute. It would be not absolute, but pretty much a wash for just your average lefty, YIMBY Democrat, right? You're going to get votes on all the good things. There will be specific issues, especially when it comes to labor and how they throw their weight around. That's why I would be a little more wary if a candidate was labor backed, because that tends to mean that they've got that they owe them something, right? Or there's some sort of relationship happening there behind the scenes that might influence policy. So there's that. But yeah, overall, I don't think there'd be a big difference. And they're both supported by labor groups. They're not. No one has the blanket labor support either. So yeah, each would be a good Democrat. So, and it's just a question of what the other one's going to do for a job once it's over.
And so our story for and another thing is it's one of the most down ballot stories we're ever going to run. And I'm just going to run it.
Do it.
A $4,000 bottle of booze. Yes, you're seeing it right there. Caught on video, exclusively obtained by NBC Bay Area, happened at the luxurious Grandview restaurant. See the woman casually walking behind the bar, there she is, walking out with a bottle of Louis XIII cognac. She then walks out the restaurant with a man. Investigators say they paid for their dinner before walking out with the bottle. It's very strange. $1,500 reward is now being offered for tips, leading to the arrest of that woman right there.
Well, wait, did they pay cash?
That's a good question. That was smooth though. That was real smooth. Just like mine. Just like I know what I'm doing. This is like their restaurant. Like they own the place. Just go grab a $4,000 bottle, walk out, and where's the bartender?
Probably doing something.
Seriously, $1,500 reward. Fuck, I hope it's coming out of that guy's paycheck or gal's paycheck.
No, we don't want anybody. We don't want the staff being.
I know, but still, you got to keep an eye. At least they have the video record. So
yeah, I don't think I doubt those people. If they paid with cash, then they paid with cash. But I don't know. The video was a little grainy, but I bet they paid with a card.
You'd think so, right? And they could track him down. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe they drank it already.
Yeah. It's probably gone already.
That's a lot of cognac to pound, though. That's some strong ass shit. Especially whatever $4,000 cognac.
I mean, if it's been a couple days and they have a few friends or whatever, right?
True. Anyway, that's another thing.
You want to read us out?
Yeah, why not? But I'm really excited for episode 200 of Local Love. So please stay tuned if you're watching on the Twitch and other spaces. Please stay in the chat. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the 200th episode. Thank you so much for joining us for Downballot. As always, if you do download this, please share it with your friends. Make sure that you're giving us some Patreon bucks or some subscriptions so we can keep everything going. And Producer Dave can keep up with the latest in technology so that this radio show on the internet type thing sounds and looks as fabulous and tits as it possibly can. Because as y'all know, we're going to do a whole show one day on how great this show sounds. So
at some point we are going to have to do a whole show about how good this show sounds.
Exactly. So stay safe, get vaxxed, wear masks, pants are optional, and I hope y'all have a great night.
Time to get the party started. Pick up my phone just to check and see who's calling. Dress up real nice for the ladies at the bar, and I'm driving in my car just to get to where they are. Here at the local scene is where I plant my feet. It's where I smoke my cigarette and I hold my drink. I look at all my friends, they're all blazing greens. Here at the front of the stage waiting for MTV. Where are those guys who's standing next to me with a pipe in his hand ready to blaze for me? About 5 minutes later we're all singing Queen. Now get the fuck up on stage and rock the scene, yeah. We do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. I turn and head back to the bar for a refill, man, because you know where we are. We're headed out to the car to smoke another one and another one. Now just when the magic starts kicking in, I hear relapse playing, you know it's time to head in. Alright everybody, now it's time to grab a new drink. Spark it if you got it and then pass it to me, yeah. We do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want, what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. Last up on the bill for the show tonight is Down and Dirty and 5, so we're headed outside to spark up another joint. Now who's got my lighter? Stoner E, of course, shouldn't you be inside?
I'm all up in this bitch being who I gotta be. I'm fucked up like the US economy. The truth is that I don't think logically. Stoner E take you on a psychedelic odyssey. Now inside motherfuckers is rocking me, and outside shit we smoke a lot of broccoli. Rocky the roller, yo, that sexy girl be jocking me. Ain't too drunk to fuck, but I'll probably do it sloppily.
We do what we want, what we wanna do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy the band, enjoy the band. We do what we want, what we wanna do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band.
Molly say that he like jamming, and he hope he like jamming too. Well, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yes, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Well, Bob Marley said that he like jamming, and he hope he like jamming too. Well, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yes, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yeah,
we do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So
So sit back and